Testing. Ooh, I heard it in the room. You tell me if you hear it. Testing. Testing. as they help you out quick.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Virginia City Council chambers. This is a regularly scheduled committee of the whole meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. The time is 9 a.m. We have a full council, we have a majority of the council present. Just to note that for the time being, Councilor Johnson is absent. And so we'll move the agenda of the committee of the whole meeting over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is Mr. Matt Reed from SEH to approve the professional services agreement for the Rotary Park sewer project.
Okay, thank you. Matt, thanks for taking the time out. I know you got a busy day today.
Mornings. Yeah, I
Morning.
just came from project sites doing walkthroughs, so progress is going well. On the agenda, we talked at the last meeting, I believe, about the doing some work out by Rotary Park, rerouting that sanitary sewer, and so that what's in the packet is, the agreement for professional services for doing that design work. And we are hoping to get the design ready and just roll it into either in conjunction with or directly a part of one of the other projects next summer, try to save some money that way. So happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Oh, very good, thank you. Just one quick question. So I see that the Lakeshore Motor Inn just scraped and replaced their entire parking lot and striped that would have any adverse effect on that, will it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve the professional services agreement for the Rotary Park sewer project.
Councilor Freely moves to approve the professional services agreement between the City of Virginia SCAs for this project, supported by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Second item on the agenda is a review of the monthly financials for September.
Thank you. There was a meeting held yesterday looking at the financials, and we had all the departments head there and went through, and those who were present looked at each one of their financial reports, and Sherry went through them with all of us, and those who weren't present either. So that being said, does any counselor have any question, comments, or concerns, or any questions about the financials for us the month of September? Okay, thank you very much. Next item.
The next item, you'll see an email from Aaron Asselson from the Public Utilities regarding the need to purchase replacement inventory for street light poles, globes, and assemblies.
Thank you. And as we look at this, Britt, and I noticed around town, I did go with a really nice couple who've been residents here for a long time, pointing out some of the globes that are either distorted or cracked and broken and need to be replaced. And so I think we have to look at doing so. So questions from the council, concerns, comments? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So how many are proposed? Is it 5?
Chestnut poles, 3 Fifth Avenue poles, 5 globe fixtures, 5 more globe fixtures, so 5 globe fixtures for Fifth Avenue, 5 globe fixtures for Chestnut Street, and then 3 extra bolt sets, pieces, parts.
So Britt, do we add all those invoices together, or is there one lump? I'm sorry if I'm not seeing it. 6, 8. So $134,070.
The actual light poles themselves are $66,865, and then the components are $13,470.
Okay.
And the request is to replace the inventory that's been depleted as a result of the replacements
Yep.
required.
And did we have 1 or 2, we had a couple globes in stock, or no?
They do have a couple.
I think if we do the math, isn't it about roughly $90,000 for
90.
everything,
Thank you.
right?
And Aaron just says his inventory is just getting pretty slim again. He attached the quotes from Wesco. So it's 3 Chestnut poles, 3 Fifth Avenue poles, 5 extra globes for Chestnut and Fifth, and then 3 of the Miller brand light pole assemblies that are being installed with the street projects.
Okay, and then how much do we have an allocation currently for that? I know we have some in the budget. We didn't allocate for 2024, I don't think anything.
I think it's under street lighting. There is a little bit in there, but and they won't be delivered till January, February, so it'll be a 25, which is why he wanted to
25.
let us know right now.
Okay, so then
sure we-
would this amount then, Britt, be added to the discussion on our budget?
Yes, and it'll be under street lighting is where you'll see it.
Okay. So if we tentatively approve that, does that automatically go in as a budgeted item for 25? Okay, is Sherry?
She's on vacation.
Oh, okay. All right, those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Any other questions regarding this? We've discussed it, so we'll put this on. I think we have like 4 items already to discuss in the budget moving forward. This will be the 5th item to be attached as we move forward to trim the budget or to finalize the budget as well. So any other questions about the item under finance number 3? Okay, let's move on to the next item, please.
The next item.
Do we need a motion for that? It was just a discussion of it. Well, we could make a motion, thank you, Pam, to place this item on the budget discussion. Is that what you're looking for? We're not going to purchase him yet, not yet. Okay, that may come to it down the road. Thank you. Britt?
Item number 4 is to discuss the bond and updating the appraisal for the Essentia Clinic.
Okay. Okay, could you give us a little synopsis, please?
This comes from the last city council meeting where Council Paulson made a motion that we get the appraisal as we're working through the discussions with the clinic, the Essentia on the clinic building and their lease.
So have we commissioned an updated appraisal for the Essentia Clinic? No, okay, thank you. Right, and the item on the agenda here is to discuss this very issue. Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess what I'm looking for is to see what the balance is on the bond versus what the current appraised value is on the property. So I don't know how much a commercial appraisal costs. I know it's not cheap. But I feel like that would probably be in the city's best interest to get a new appraised value for that property.
Mayor, could I add?
Yes, please, Brian?
Yep. So a commercial appraisal is a little bit more expensive, and the experience we had with the hospital was finding somebody who will appraise a medical facility is even more difficult. So it may take a little bit of time, although we do have the name from the appraiser from the hospital, so.
So seeing as we're going to be asking for this, looking for an appraisal as discussed, and if to move forward with directing staff to move forward of getting an appraisal for it, it would be prudent for us to have a motion unless you want to wait until later on down the road for the discussion. So we're going to have to get one eventually. Question, who's paying for it, the appraisal? Are we going to pay for the appraisal, or is Essentia Health? Because they're allegedly, not allegedly, but they're considering the purchase of this facility, and they would want to know what that appraised value is. And for them to do their due diligence just like us, they want to know what they'd be willing to come to the table with respect to the appraisal. So my question would be, who would be responsible for the appraisal, or could the appraisal cost be split between the two parties, or how would that work, Brian? Any advice there?
Thank you, Mayor. So it is kind of an open topic. So because of the fact that we're kind of in conversations about the facility, we could reach out and see if they'd be willing to split the cost. And maybe as a first step, we can just reach out and try and get an estimated cost for an appraisal so we know what kind of numbers we're talking about.
Councilor Paulson?
I would be amicable to, I guess, maybe requesting quotes for that, just to start the process. Sure.
So would you like to make that in the form of the motion, direct staff to obtain quotes for that?
I will make that motion.
Thank you. Motion by Counselor Paulson to direct staff to obtain quotes for an appraisal for the clinic lease. Is there support for that?
Support.
By Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Motley.
Sort of off topic from the clinic, but who paid for the appraisal when we had the hospital appraised before we sold it? Was that us or Essentia? Do you know? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as was moved and supported, to direct staff to obtain quotes for the appraisal for the Essential Health Clinic. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to differentiate, is there could they give us two different, if we're going to go out for requests for quotes, is there one that's a medical facility and one that's just based on the actual square footage and the building and that sort of thing? Can they give us, is there two different appraisals that we need to be looking at?
Ryan?
I could request that information. The other thing is, I've got the name of one appraisal company, the Grant Thornton, who is the company that did the hospital. I could look around to see if there's others that may put in a quote.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. There has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Item number 5 is we had a request for replacement of a stop sign at the intersection of North 3rd Avenue West and First Street North. This would be making it a 4-way stop at that location.
Yeah, right now, it's a two-way stop.
Been a 2-way stop for as long as I can remember. This person had called me a while back after the street was reconstructed and asked why we didn't put it back as a 4-way, and I said it was never a 4-way, it was always a 2-way. And I think we had discussion about it, Matt, if I may call Matt Reed up again.
Thank you. Matt, thank you for sticking around. Matt Reed.
Yep, sure, no problem. That intersection was a two-way. The east-west leg is, so the leg of First Street is actually the stopped one. 3rd Avenue is a through street. And I do think there was some increased traffic on that street when 2nd Avenue was closed. I know I drove it every morning. I never drive it in the morning, but with 2nd Avenue closed, I drove it every morning. So I think there was some increased traffic there. It's really no different than the intersection a couple blocks down with 5th Avenue. It's just that the avenue is stopped and the street is through. So, you know, I don't necessarily feel personally that or professionally maybe even, that there's a need to put 2 more stop signs in that intersection. I recognize that anytime that traffic is not allowed to stop, there might be a safety concern. And every morning that I've gone through there, obviously this person sits there all day long, so they see a heck of a lot more than I do the few times I drive through there during the day. But it really just boils down to traffic stopping at the stop signs that are there and pedestrians making sure that they're following the protocol for crossing a street. So we could probably make an argument for a lot of places in town that you could maybe want to have a stop sign to help prevent things. But stop signs have their inherent issues as well. I mean, tends to give people a false sense of safety sometimes because they think people are going to stop and then they don't. The other thing that happens is you get a lot more noise because people are stopping and starting. So you're going to have those engines revving, and for some reason it seems like straight pipes are starting to come back like they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I can appreciate that request, and it is a busy intersection, but I think it's going to cause some issues if we actually add a stop sign there that people don't want. So that's my opinion as your engineer, that I don't know that that's, if there are people speeding through there. And that's the other thing. Sometimes what appears to be speeding looks a lot different when you're on a residential street. Somebody might be going 20 miles an hour through that intersection and it looks fast, but it really is only 20 miles an hour. And so it's, without having the police department go out there with a radar gun and see what people are doing, it's hard to say for sure. But That's my 2 cents worth. Take it for what you want. I'd be happy to provide any other insight or give any other input if you'd like.
Yeah, a couple of things, Matt, if I may, and then I'll go to the council. First of all, a four-way stop inhibits traffic through a thoroughfare, so to speak, and Third Avenue is a thoroughfare from Chestnut Street all the way down. It's a one-stop shop. There's no other stop signs until you get to the Sixth Avenue North there. So that's number one. Number two, they're concerned about stacking. Well, I don't think there's an issue there. I don't think enough vehicles are on First Street South that would inhibit stacking, but does inhibit the normal flow of traffic down Third Avenue, which is a concern for me, number one. And number two, I think if we're going to consider doing this as far as part of street and alley, I think I'd like to request that it go back to the street and alley for consideration and vetting. And one of the things we may want to do, if it's amenable to the chair of the Street and Alley Committee, to put down those little strips to count the traffic count, how that works out, because to justify another stop sign, there would determine upon the traffic count and those kind of things. But that's a consideration we might want to work on in the future. I don't think, in my view, that putting a stop sign there now or avoiding to do so would be prudent. We should do some more due diligence. I think that's why it's on the agenda to discuss it today. So thank you for that, Councilor Freely.
With that, I would make a motion to move this to discuss at the next meeting of the Street and Alley Committee, just to further vet that and consider.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Freely, but is there support?
Support for discussion.
By Councilor Paulson for discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Was this request made by a business owner in the area or a resident in that area
That works in that area.
that works in the area? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported to move that to the committee, Street and Alley, for further discussion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Item number 6 is the review the proposed policy regarding public participation at city meetings, and this comes from the 9/17/24 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Yeah, I think it's prudent for us to just to remind the general public and any other people who are presenting, about when you participate, everybody has an opportunity to participate, but to maintain a professional decorum when doing so, and not calling out individuals for personality reasons and things of that nature. Just a reminder to stick to the topic of discussion and to make your presentation in a professional manner, and we will act accordingly in a professional manner to accommodate the requests that you have or listen to what you have to say and research whatever questions you have if we don't have the answer at the meeting. So I think that's basically what this is about. So looking for other questions, comments from the council. And again, this is to review the proposed policy moving forward.
Mayor,
Councilor Freely.
I think it's a good idea to have it in writing, so it's something we could refer to, and it gives you a little more, authority in terms of like controlling. But I might add that in the 6 years I've sat here, I've been impressed with the people that come forward in this community and have been, keeping their calm and stating their case. And for the most part, other than there's been some issues, but I mean, for the most part, people have come here and spoken without a whole lot of emotion. That's my recall. But I do agree that something like this is beneficial to the city to have in writing to refer to as needed. So thank you for putting that together.
And thank you. And I think that to add on to that, it's not about attacking the city council member or personally attacking them, but it's our department heads and our employees too. And even when they come to a meeting to make accusations against a city worker, whether it's police, fire, ASME, whoever it is, personal attacks aren't really warranted here, and it gives the authority for the council to try to control that environment a little bit and try to stick to that topic. And a reminder that in the beginning of the meeting may help temper, what that individual might want to say in the course of their presentation. So thank you. So we're discussing at this time. Any other questions, comments from the council? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. On page 67, under item III, during the public forum period, the presiding officer may, and then it's the third bullet point down, permit audio or video recordings if the person operating the recording has contacted the city clerk prior to meeting concerning placement of the recording equipment and provided the recording process does not distract members of the board or of the audience and does not disrupt the meeting. Is this referring, so just for clarification, is this referring mainly to more of media presence and that the general public could still, in fact, use their personal devices to record any such meetings? That does not prohibit them from doing that. This is mainly to address any media concerns coming forward with camera placement, not to distract the meeting overall?
Correct, and to not block our cameras and to not,
Okay, so does that need to be clarified at all?
we can clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
We'll make that note to clarify the policy before it comes before the council for a vote. Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Any other questions, comments as we review this policy moving forward? The one addition or clarification from Councilor Paulson will be added for consideration moving forward. Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is the Building Security Policy and Procedure from the 9/3/2024 Committee of the Whole meeting.
The cleaning, proposal for cleaning services?
No, Building Security Policy. Number 7.
Oh, I'm sorry, building security policy, but thank you. Okay. So reading through the policy and procedures with respect to this, getting permission from a supervisor and those kind of things coming through. I mean, accessing the building, is for the safety and security. As I brought this up, I know it's been a bone of contention about how this moves forward or, prohibiting or people from accessing this facility. But in speaking to other cities around the area, they significantly and strictly prohibit, access after hours to and from designated areas unless the person has a reason to be here, whether it's a public works director or a city administrator or something where an emergency exists and they have access. Now, we're fortunate to have controlled access into the building for the most part, and other cities do not have that controlled access. They have key access. So by controlling access by fob that we have is helpful, but once entry is made into the building, who's authorized to have keys and who doesn't. And so when the word in that policy says supervisor, who would be the supervisor of a city councilor or an elected official that would have access to and from, whether it be, mayor or councilor. So I think that is part of what we had discussed earlier and some of the concerns that some of us had with respect to that. So there's some other comments I may have moving forward, but I move to the city elected officials here for additional discussion. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And reading through this, I also, we don't have a time frame on here, and I think I've asked before, is it correct that we lock the doors as the hours are posted on the door?
About 5 o'clock, they lock them.
Okay. And do we have cameras that record all areas of the building?
Yes.
So we will not run into people sleeping in the building or being in here during the evening hours
We would
without
hope
our
not, but
knowledge?
if we do, at least we'll be notified that they're in here now and we'll see them.
Okay. And my concern with all of this policy was the safety of staff that work after hours, that people are not in the building the same time staff is in here. Once the building is closed, somebody could do a walkthrough, make sure nobody's in a room, and just stays there until the building is locked and lights are off. So it's more about the security of the staff that does work in this building, that once office hours, when they're posted, that's when the door gets locked. And as long as we have camera footage of all areas in this building to make sure that everything is clear, people are cleared of the building before the doors are locked.
The police, I know yesterday was one example. Officer Holman stopped in at 5 o'clock and said, "Do you have any meetings tonight or anything?" I said, "I don't think there's anything." He said, "We're locking it down." And then I'm like, great. So I know he walked to the whole building. And so oftentimes they will stop and see me. Sometimes they don't stop in, which is fine. They don't have to. But I can hear them physically going around the building, locking the doors and checking around. So
Thank you.
we do
And I-
appreciate that. The staff does appreciate them doing that.
Right. And after being here with you in the evenings, that was a concern of mine, that the staff be safe once the building is locked down. Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, I've been in the building many times after hours, going through, talking to different legislators and things of that nature, or whatever, need me after hours sometimes. And Officer Holman has come, another officer says, "Oh, I see you're still in the building." I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "Well, we're going to lock it up." I says, "We'll lock it up when you have to." So they do make their patrol around now. They make sure that nobody's in the building, even if nobody's here, even if staff is not here. And they lock it a lot earlier than they did before. So that's a nice change as we move forward through this policy. But the concern I have is who has access, whether it's during hours or particularly after hours, to different parts of the building, and have keys, and who's authorized to have them and who's not, and who makes that decision who's authorized to have them or not. I think from a employee perspective, I think that's up to the city administrator to determine what employees should have access to and from, who has keys to and from. But from an elected official perspective, with all due respect, that this is something that would have to come from the council if we're going to restrict, access by elected officials and try to determine what the need is. And I don't see that specifically outlined in the policy. Councilor Motley.
I would have to agree with you, Mr. Mayor, on that particular point. I also don't see anything hindering me from coming inside this building at any time, and I don't believe I should have access to this, or any city councilor should have access to this building after hours. So that's my only concern with this policy and procedure. I would like to see something in there that excludes the city council also from coming in here after business hours. I think the mayor position is, in my opinion, more important. You have a lot more things going on, and I think with your office here in the building, you should have access because you're just in a different role. And so I would like to see something put in place that the council is not coming here after business hours. Thank you.
And I think, Britt, you have the ability, the capability of limiting access from the fob through the downstairs floor after hours are closed, right? You can limit the times in which somebody has access to that facility or into the building. Is that correct? So we can control it from that environment as well.
Does that require a motion?
Make it a lot easier going back, looking, 10 years from now, looking back why we made this decision would be better if we had it documented in the minutes. I
don't know if I have to ask Brian or Britt, what would that motion look like in a professional term?
Brian?
Mayor. So I think the appropriate motion would just be a motion to amend the policy to include that term. Then it would be incorporated into the policy.
I'd like to make that motion. And, okay, can that be read back on how that might look? Like, I know, like, Pam, how are you going to type that? Because I'm looking to not have the city council members present in this city hall after business hours. And I would like that amended in this policy and procedure today. Is that correct, Brian?
So the technical motion would be to amend the security policy to prohibit council members from being in the building after hours, unless by appointment or if you want to make exceptions.
I would be okay with that. Thank you. I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion by Councilor Motley. Is there support for that motion?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Further discussion, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've had some spirited discussion regarding this topic, and I do have a question regarding accessibility for an office space. Is there any option that we would have? Do we have any available rooms within areas downstairs or upstairs that could be utilized for office access if any individual doesn't have an office space or needs to have access to a space to utilize, but not necessarily, and I don't know if you're comfortable with that, but just not necessarily being able to, my concern was the finance office for sure, and where the election machines were stored and having access to that by anybody, not just council members. But I'm just wondering if, as we kind of talk this through and add that language to the draft policy, is there something that we could think about in terms of office access? I would like to maybe include that as part of a discussion if possible. Otherwise, I'm very comfortable, but I don't want to prohibit office access if that seems to be part of the discussion, the heated discussion that we've had, just some sort of accessibility for office. Thank you.
Yeah, and there would be times where, after hours, people would have to be here after hours. So usually when you have the planning and zoning meeting, which is authorized, you have the Sons of Norway, we open the door for them, and they have their office space downstairs. The sexual assault has an office here, they have access to that. Those are reasonable access points in that regard. And of course, once those, they do this security sweep. But with respect to elected officials, I mean, those are authorized accesses because they have a need to, maybe with Sons of Norway once a month or once every 2 weeks or wherever it is, sexual assault back and forth to deal with their clients moving forward and working closely with the police department in that regard. And of course, the committee meetings that we have after hours as well, we all have access to that for legitimate purposes, for the purpose of conducting official business, right? So, Councilor Paulson.
Mayor, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like per individual, but it would just maybe be a shared space that if you did have a constituent that wanted to meet and didn't have a space to go to, that there would be that one, maybe access to the building and then to that one room. And maybe that could be part of the discussion going forward.
For a specific time, not blanket access. Very good. Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilor, I'm sorry, Pam. Councilor Levine?
Wrong city.
Levine? Yes.
Thanks. So in those instances, Counselor Paulson, I think it would be the best if someone contacted me so I could schedule that and then contact the appropriate people to have the doors open for them to use the committee room or
Perfect.
the lunchroom or whatever they needed to have a meeting.
I'm thinking more just maybe like a room for like if you actually had to take in your laptop and do some busy work or something like that. So I'm not necessarily talking about scheduling a room,
Yeah.
but like if we just wanted to meet with somebody and there was no other place. I mean, yeah, you
But that would probably be the committee room because that's
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, whatever that
Then
looks like,
that
just to
does
add
get
that to
booked,
the
so,
discussion.
Okay.
And get that scheduled.
Yes.
Perfect. That-
So
yeah.
there's a record of the access and
Right.
the
And then you
legitimate
understand
purpose for
who's
it.
in the building and the time frame of the access, and that keeps the security, at least knowing what's happening in the building. I would agree with that. Thank you.
And then just one other question on the motion for Counselor Motley. That's council members, is that including the mayor as well?
For me, that was not including the mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, I think because the mayor has an office, the access should be limited to that office space only, no place else in the building is the mayor needed to be. And if there's an emergency situation, the city administrator has the ability to, provide that based upon the critical incident management or critical access policy as well. So thank you for that. So it has been moved and supported. Right? Yes. Moving forward. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, please, Britt.
Thank you. And item number 8 is discuss the request for proposals for cleaning services, and this also comes from the council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Motley?
Just looking at this proposal in its current form, which I know a few of us have expressed concerns whenever this was discussed a month or more at this point ago. Would this save the city money? Brett?
Face value, it looks like it would.
So how many cleaning specialists or employees do we have in the city right now?
4 that are dedicated to custodial.
Okay, and do you know what the total is of that with benefits and wages?
I don't have the actual number, but I'm going to guess about 400,000.
400,000 a year, okay. And what would this, just this, in this current form that I know many of us aren't happy with, what would it look like for 1 year? I know there's a 10% upcharge if we left things the way it was, but on an estimate, what are we looking at? Just to throw out, I know it's not true face value.
About 140,000.
140,000 versus 400,000. When I see that, I just think, wow, you're looking at, and I know these are just hypotheticals, but that's roughly, give or take, $260,000, which to me is a tremendous amount of money. I think that the city should be looking and engaging with this proposal and seeing if they'd be willing to change it to what might look better for the city of Virginia. I know there's some concerns the last time we talked about 3 days a week versus maybe more days a week at the ETMEC, but I would like to see this go forward, and if we can save money, I'm all for it. So what would be the process in trying to move this forward if the council so agreed to it or whatever? What do I need to do?
Brian?
Mayor. So I think the process would be that the council would have to indicate to the staff to move forward, but then the next step would be we would need to get together with the AFSCME union to continue our discussions there.
Okay, because I know we're not happy with this in its current form, even if this moved forward, but I would like to make that motion to move things forward with what Brian just recommended.
So the motion would be, Brian, if I may, to move the request for proposals, cleaning services forward, direct staff to do so, and then as part of that process, meet with AFSCME union with respect to that as well. Is that correct? That would be the motion.
Yes.
Is there support for that motion? Is there support for that motion? I'll support for further discussion. Further discussion, Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess I need clarification on the motion, sorry, but are we looking at using this current, proposal? Because we already did we not already go out for a request for proposal? Because I have some concerns with the proposal that's in the packet going forward.
Brian, and then we can discuss that, obviously.
So by moving it forward, you wouldn't necessarily be committing to anything. You wouldn't be entering into any contracts. The next actual step is to meet with the AFSCME union to discuss how implementation may or could occur. And in the meantime, I think you could update the information or get a better form, whatever the council is looking for. But it's essentially to just further the discussions and to gather more information.
Okay, so if that's the case, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Paulson. Councillor Freely?
So this estimate that we received from cleaning specialists, is this based on essentially the number of employees that they would have to be able to do the work that's necessary, would equate to only 3 days a week, or are they willing to resubmit that would make it like a 5-day-a-week proposal?
The RFP asked for 3 days a week, so that was.
We sought that? Yeah, I just can't support public buildings being cleaned 3 days a week. I'm not in favor of this as it's been submitted to us. If it was resubmitted in some fashion where there was 5 days a week, like it's being done currently by the existing staff, I'd look at those numbers and and have that conversation further. But at this point, I can't support what's been submitted to us because it just isn't conducive to what we are trying to provide to the community.
Okay, thank you. I guess we're just moving this forward. Got to meet with the bargaining unit, which is what we're supposed to do, should do. And then once we figure that out, this could completely change. It's nothing that's going to stay this way. We haven't bound by anything, but for me, to put this on the back burner and not move forward at all, you know, when is that going to happen? When are we going to resolve this moving forward? So I'm going to support it because we have to enter negotiations with ASME with respect to this. And during that period of time, additional changes can be made, whether it's 3 days a week or 5 days a week or wherever the case becomes later on down the road. As is in our packet, it's a draft of a policy only. You had your light on, Councilor Beyondich, and then we'll go back over to Councilor Motley. Councilor Beyondich.
I did, thank you. And for me, it's starting the conversation, I think. And I'm okay moving it forward to, like you said, this could completely change. And having conversation with both the union and with cleaning specialists, it could change the scope of the work that is being done. So if this is just to move it forward and start this conversation, I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Motley?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to clarify at this time, I don't support this contract in its current form. This was just to get the process rolling forward for further discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? We're clarified on the motion and moving this forward for further discussion with the bargaining unit and as well as determining after that meeting how we're going to proceed and what changes could not be made and whether we're going to move forward with this or not. But we're moving it further for additional discussion, so it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion from the council? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please. Pam.
Cuffey,
Aye.
Motley,
Yes.
Friedlieb,
No.
Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich,
Aye.
Johnson is absent, Barancelli,
Motion passes 5-1 with one absent. Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
The next item comes from the personnel meeting held on October 2nd, 2024. Want me to go through, Councilor Paulson?
Yes, please.
No problem. The first item, we had discussion with Brian Silber, who just walked out, but he should take a phone call, regarding, he had proposed an intern position, kind of a recreation assistant, and after further discussion, Brian and I got deep down into what he's really looking for, and he was working with Willie Speltz at the school regarding doing an academy model type of position that would get credits for doing the work that we're looking for. And what we really need is a digital media technician kind of a position. A student is what we're looking for that is interested in going into something like broadcasting, video, film, photographic, audio, those kind of things, because our audiovisual equipment is very, very, very complex, and you can do some really cool things. And if we had somebody that could dedicate their time to doing that, we could even do more amazing things, and we could actually start selling some advertising on this, on the center hung scoreboard also, if we had somebody that had the ability to do that in time. Brian, we're talking about your job description. If you want to come up and jump in, I'm trying to fill in here.
Good morning. Just in the nick of time, Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director.
And how it changed from the basically recreation assistant to really, we need a digital media technician is what we need.
Yep. Prime example would be what the person would have been doing today. We know the center hung scoreboard, as we were just talking about. But yesterday, we had to have somebody go through all of the laptops that are being used today and do a pre-test on the laptops for a training course that is being held today at the event center. Each of those computers had to be tested with their connection to the training software that is being used for that training today. So ended up taking about an hour to go through the 8 computers that were set up to be used for that training course today. So it's things like that that would be helpful to have this IT person. In addition, last Tuesday night, as we were getting ready for the council meeting to start, I was over here for the council meeting and I got a call that, hey, our internet just went out in the building, which is always a fun thing. A lot of people who don't know technology are really intimidated when you open an IT closet and there is a rack of equipment there with blinking lights as to what to do and what not to do. Having people that are more trained and more comfortable with that technology to know, ooh, this box is not blinking and it should be blinking, and knowing the proper way to reset that is always a good thing, not only for the operation of the building, but for the longevity of our equipment.
Thank you, Brian. Councilor Paul, Councilor Freely.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea to have the city involved with the academy model of the Rockridge School District. I'm assuming there's a STEM academy or something of that sort, science, technology, engineering, and math. And there are probably very talented students in that academy that could benefit the city with that kind of skill that they're developing there. Would we like to include the word intern on that job description so that it could be conducive to providing them a credit for the work that they're doing?
A true intern does not work 365 days a year, which Brian needs this position 365 days a year, not necessarily just during the semester.
Then we'd be able to have that association with the school because they're not in attendance 365 days a year.
They are still interested in having this position, and we can promote it with them. Essentially, this is a recruitment tool for us, as you know, by looking around at all of our local businesses. Finding good employees to apply and work is a challenge for everybody these days, and this is just tailoring the job description to something that is more appealing for an individual is our hope to get that person into the door. Initially, our job descriptions were super vague, and that's just not helping us in recruiting the right people to do some of these specialized things.
And there has been a turnover of sorts in positions that you've had there, particularly in the rec assistance. This would create a pool of potential employees or people that could do this position.
Part-time positions will always have turnover. Now that we are getting out of the concession business and scaling down the number of part-timers that we have, I would hope to see less of a turnover in the position. But as long as we are hiring high school students, they will graduate within a year to a couple of years, hopefully move on and into their professional life, hopefully stay in the area and contribute in our economy, but they may go away to college. Hopefully we can provide them something that they want to come back to as an adult and be members of our community again.
Has there been efforts made to train existing staff to kind of
Oh,
fill the
yes.
position in that?
So, and a lot of our existing staff doesn't have the comfort level with the technology or the desire to learn that.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? So the purpose of this meeting is to review the job description, which we are doing. Are you looking for any additional action at this point in time, Britt?
If you would approve it, move it to the council meeting for approval, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Request by City Administrator Britt C. Bennis, as we look at this job description for the digital multimedia technician. Between now and the week until the next council meeting, we'll have some more time to vet and understand, ask more questions. But the purpose is on the request of Britt C. Bennis to move this to the council meeting. So looking for council action, questions, comments, concerns. Councilor Motley.
Yes, Brian, how many rec assistants have gone back to school that we aren't replacing?
Here in the past month and a half, we have had 6 of our rec assistants fall off the books because they have left to go back to school and do not intend to return. We've had 3 more that have gone away to school, but we are keeping them on the books because they are coming home on like one weekend a month or for the holidays and have been working with us. So altogether, we've lost 9 of our part-timers. So our part-time pool has drastically dwindled down, but that's okay because with us not planning to run the concession stands, this will enable us to still have adequate number of hours available to schedule the staff that we still have on hand.
And that's what I needed to hear. Are you happy with the job description as is for this particular position?
Yes.
I'll move this forward to the city council, and I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Motley moves to send the job description from the committee of the whole meeting for the digital multimedia technician to the city council meeting for further discussion and potential adoption. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
By Councilor Paulson for discussion, further discussion. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Not to open up this can of worms, but I do want to ask Brian and maybe Britt too, and I know Sherry's not here for the finance question on this, but you know how we've had in the past, like, we've authorized up to 10 FTEs for the rec assistants. If we do need this position, like if we need more coverage than maybe what one student could give, would it be advantageous to talk about almost like a couple students could share the job up to, 15 to 20 hours? Would that be an option or advantageous to providing coverage?
That would be great.
You know, I don't know, like then you might get a couple students that might be interested and could, you know, one could cover the scoreboard this time and one could do this that time or whatever. Would that be an option? So if we say yes to I think the job description sounds excellent after what we discussed at Personnel Committee. But I was just thinking, if you need more coverage, and we have had 6 drop off the books, so we had budgeted for a total of 10 FTEs. I'm sorry Sherry's not here, but I don't know what we're planning to do with that. Are we carrying that budget item over into 2025?
She had, because we hadn't had that full discussion yet on what we're going to do with everybody there. So it would, I think what Brian's idea was to earmark a couple of those positions were going to be this now and reduce our number of FTEs for the rec assistant.
I don't know if the school would be amicable to that, but I feel like it might give you a better pool of resources and better coverage. So I'm for the job description. I just wanted to open that up for discussion too. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So this item on the agenda, which came from personnel, is to review the job description. Now, there's been a motion in support to move it forward for the job description to be potentially adopted at the council meeting. The job description only. How that job description is filled, who's going to fill it, how many hours going to be used comes later on down the road. But the purpose of this meeting today is to move the job description forward for potential adoption. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Brian. Item number 10, coming from the personnel meeting on October 2nd, was review the letter of understanding between AFSCME Local 454 and the City of Virginia for finance office employees.
Okay, this comes from personnel, so look for some direction on their discussion on how that move forward. My only comment is that whatever discussion is made, whatever review, whatever recommendation comes forward is for us to vote upon, and I think it's important for us to move this forward. My only comment is that as we have memorandums of understanding, whether it's ASME or whether it's with the police or the fire, whoever it is, that when we have a letter of understanding, it's for a specific issue. We're not setting a precedent for this particular department or other department for the future. This is a one-time thing based on a certain circumstance, and the adjustments that are being made for the letter of understanding is an agreement for this particular instance. So that's my only comment. Councillor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. At the meeting, we had, we kind of met and conferred, and then we went into little caucus times. And I did have a hard time at first because we have had other amounts in past, I don't know if you call it past practice or past instances with extra duties. But once I received a list from the staff of all of the things that they had done and that they had covered since we have been down clerk 3 in the finance office, I really understood how much that these specific employees have stepped up to the plate to do quite a lot of work and to meet quite a lot of deadlines. And I know we had, in the past, the amount has never been this high. But once it was, I guess, we met back and forth, and once it was really, and our finance director was there and also in support of this. But once it was made known all the extra details and duties that were, I guess, on their plates for quite some time, I felt like the committee was okay with this dollar amount. And I don't know if you have anything to add with that, but I feel like we did do our due diligence, and we had a really good conversation and heard one another out. So I'm comfortable with moving forward, although it's a higher amount than we have done in the past. There is language in there in the MOU. Is it an MOU or an LOU? In the LOU, that this is not precedent setting. So at that point, I'm comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson. So, it's a process moving forward, and I we have a couple of councillors here, but for keep my train of thought going. We've already committed to going out for replacing that clerk in finance. So that process is moving forward. In the interim, based upon the duties and responsibilities that have been taken on by the two other people in finance, so that moving forward, the recommendation I will support based upon your discussions with staff, with finance director, and looking at the job description moving forward. So I have the trust and faith that that's going to be the case, knowing that it's finite, that it's sunsetting, and that once this position is replaced down the line, once that clerk 3 is in place, then this goes away. So it's the compensation package, make adjustments based on job description, whether it's comparable worth or whatever it is. It's in line with what we need to do to temporarily compensate for the additional duties and responsibilities. So that being said, move over to Councillor Motley and then back over to Councillor Beyondich. Councillor Motley.
Yeah, so I just have a question or a few things here. Britt, will these two employees be making more money than the MAPE supervisors?
Did not do a comparison. I do not know that.
Okay. I did. I contacted Sherry yesterday. So currently, these two AFSCME positions per Sherry make $36.38 an hour. If they get the $8 an hour raise each, that puts them at $44.38 an hour. Just for this year alone, that's an additional $16,640 per person, for a total just of this year, $33,280. To me, that seems rather high. When they're at $44.38 an hour, they are now $1 under Brian Silber, who is the head of Parks and Rec, which is the largest department in the city of Virginia. They are going to be higher than Jim by $8 an hour, another MAPE employee. They're going to be higher than Jen, another MAPE employee, by a lot, another one, Brianna Coughlin, MAPE employee, a lot. I think when you start doing something like this, I don't know, in my opinion, as a MAPE employee, why you'd want to be a MAPE employee in the city of Virginia in a supervisory position. I also had time to do some more job searching, and I reached out to the county and got their contract. And I know our accountants are obviously going to be slightly different than the St. Louis County, which is the largest county in the state of Minnesota. But at the pay scale of what the personnel is recommending to the council, these two individuals would be making about less than 20 cents less than the highest, most experienced accountant for St. Louis County, which to me just is shocking. Also, then I asked Sherry to get me the information on our police department. And if I had more time, I would have gotten the fire too, but I already busy. But so then I got our Virginia Police Department wages, and currently at what they're at, a 10-year patrol officer is making about 50 cents more an hour than them at 36, 38 an hour right now. And that's a 10-year patrol officer that puts their lives in the line of duty for us. Now, if you give them the $8 an hour raise, which is a $16,640 raise just this year, you put them at $44.38, that's more than our sergeant at $38.35 an hour. That's more than our lieutenant at $39.83 an hour. That's more than our community relations officer at $41.42 an hour. That's more than our police detective at $41.30 an hour. They're blowing them right out of the water. And this is nothing against these two, and I appreciate them doing the additional work. I do, I really do. But I come from a healthcare background, and we're doing more with less. And in today's world, that's kind of where it's going. I didn't agree to bring on another another accountant into the office, which obviously I lost 6-1 on that, but I don't agree with this at all. I think $8 an hour, an additional $16,640 just this year alone, a person is way too high. We're trying to lower our budget, and you can tell me that, well, this particular position wasn't, or is budgeted for 2024, and they quit earlier this year. So, but I just wish we would stop spending money. I wish we would stop spending money. I think, I don't think we have an employee turnover problem in this city. I think we pay our employees well. I think our benefits are untouchable, possibly next to the mines. If we were having employee turnover, I think maybe we need to readdress some things. But for me, at this dollar amount, I can't approve it going forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Motley. Councilor Beyondich.
And yes, I had to step away from the meeting early as I had another commitment. But I was contacted by a constituent that did point out that MAPE employees, if I'm correct, are they compensated $5 an hour more for MAPE? Okay.
MAPE has a clause in their contract that if they take on an additional position that's outside of their normal position, they get $5 an hour.
Okay. And I think we discussed that a little bit at the meeting. And my other question is, how many hours of overtime were incurred? 0? During,
I can find it really quick.
okay, and I'm sorry. And does that stipend, or does that include those overtime hours?
This is a stipend, so this does not get counted hourly. It's just a stipend that's given to them as a separate line item on their check. So it doesn't actually increase their hourly wage. It's just an extra dollar amount.
And that was calculated on the amount of hours worked, or just a flat?
It would be
It
calculated
didn't
on the amount of
matter.
hours that are worked, yes.
So you don't have the overtime? Okay, I know, I'm sorry, Sherry's not here to answer that. So those are a few of the things that a constituent had concerns about.
Okay, so we'll go to Counselor Freely, but then maybe somebody from staff who's affected by this can give a little perspective, or the union official, Amanda Metza. Counselor Freely?
Well, this is a unique circumstance, even more unique than others that have been cited, where we're giving additional compensation for jobs that were combined at one other time. And we're compensating them on a finite period of time, from March, when the position was vacated, to 3 months after the hiring of the position that we have now advertised for. And so the comparison that you're making is not really apples to oranges, because they might be making more than some of the people you mentioned for that time frame, but then they go on to their original contract after the fact. And what was somewhat palatable to me in the negotiations was the fact that we had budgeted for this position, so the money is there to pay for the work that needed to be done. And as you can see on page 77, it's a breakdown of the work that has been done and continues to be being done by these employees. And to my understanding, there has been no additional overtime that's been submitted, and so they've been doing things during their breaks, they've been doing things during their lunch periods, and working hard to do what needs to be done to accomplish the tasks that are necessary in that department. And so, yeah, it sounds like a lot, because it is a lot, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done because a person was gone from that position. And that had to be assigned to people within the department. And speaking in terms of the reaction of the MAPE people, this recommendation comes from their MAPE supervisor, that this is a reasonable settlement for them to be able to be compensated for the work that they've been doing since March. So I thought the negotiations were amicable, professional, reasonable, and we arrived at this amount. It started at a higher amount. They came down 4 steps. We went up 3 steps, and that's what we arrived at. And I feel that they're due to be compensated accordingly for that finite period of time until we can fill the position accordingly. And I think we also have to look then in the future too, when we talk about attrition of positions. When we eliminate a position or don't hire for that position, who do we expect to do that job then? And so this is a good example of, like, you can't just say, well, we're not going to hire that position, when there's work that needs to be done by the position or the person that was vacating that position. So I am in favor of this agreement as recommended at the end of that negotiation session by their MAPE supervisor, Sherry, as well as a consensus of the committee that was involved in this discussion. So,
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Just one point of clarification, if I may, with all due respect. Sherry is not a MAPE employee. She is a at-will employee, so she's a department head. So, okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich, and then Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And this did come as a recommendation from Britt as finance and from Sherry, our finance director, that this was a recommendation from both staff members, correct?
Yeah. I don't have a lot to do with that department because it's not my department, it is Sherry's. And this was a recommendation of Sherry that she did say. And it is, like Gary said, we do have money in the budget because we did not fill this position. So even the dollar amount that Liz had mentioned that's going to be paid this year is not close to what the wage and the benefits were for that position. So there's still money saved in the end.
Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. One other question is, how will the council handle if this comes forward from MAPE or others with a higher dollar amount?
Well, as it says in the agreement, as being recommended by personnel, this is an unprecedented, it's not precedented. So it's a one-time situation on a case-by-case basis, just like we did with the Public Works Director back at, when we didn't have a Public Works Director, we made an adjustment to the pay scale for the lead, and that was Eddie Alto, and it was an adjustment made for that. That was not precedent-setting either. That was a different amount. Oh, I hope that helps.
Thank you. And could you tell me how long Sherry will be out of the office? 25th. So if I withhold my vote until I can speak to, well, would I be able to meet with you, Brett, to go over? Thank you.
So, Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess I was unaware of some of the disparities or the discrepancies with the MAPE employees and the LELS employees, and that is concerning to me. I have to be honest. But we did negotiate in good faith, and what came out of that was that agreement. So this is a difficult position because I also know that the MAPE union really stepped forward at a time where the city was in need. And I do not believe, did the MAPE union get compensated for stepping up during that time? And how much was that compensation, do you
It was
recall?
$5 an hour for 40 hours, I think it was.
$5 an hour for how many hours?
Hours, I believe.
About $220.
Say that again.
$220.
$220.
And I can tell that this is causing some tension. So now I'm kind of at a crossroads, and I knew when we had our meeting that this would be a part of the contention. And I don't want anyone to feel that their job that they do is not appreciated and that they are being undercompensated. So this is really difficult because I don't want one union to be upset against another union. Again, I know we have non-precedent setting language in this LOU, but there have been several examples where the $5 has been both with AFSCME employees, $5, when John Sullivan was AFSCME, and he took on the extra responsibility of being the executive director of the VETA board, and received $5 an hour extra compensation for that extra duty. Is that correct? So this is really a tough one, to be very honest, and I just wanted to state that for the record, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Amanda?
If Megan has any, I know that one of the impacted employees is here today, and so if she would like to speak on this, I guess what I would like to do is just recap a little bit of the conversation that took place with personnel and respond on some of the concerns. Obviously, you don't want, we were very intentional about inserting language about non-precedent setting basis because of the kind of extraordinary nature of this particular circumstance. And we don't want dissension between unions or anybody feeling left out, but this is a very particular circumstance. This is a department where 3 individuals perform this work. You may remember that you have 3 because of the increased workload within this office within the last 2 years, and that was an intentional choice made by the council. And when that position wasn't left unfilled, those employees had to assume the entire scope of the work of that 3rd position. And we had some conversation at this. Councilor Motley's point is well taken that every department is doing more with less, but Councilor Motley, I know, also works in healthcare, and one of the things that is true in those roles, as in the roles here, and these are hourly employees, is that they they would have been within their right to say, this is a huge amount of responsibility and a huge number of extra duties you're putting onto us, and we need overtime to do that. And at those rates, right, that would be an additional $18, $19 an hour for every hour worked. I don't know that there have been 0 hours of overtime. I also know that you would have to compare that overtime work to last year's overtime work to see if there's been an increase. Certainly a few hours of overtime have been incurred, but they could have worked each of these additional nearly 14 hours of work they were expected to absorb at overtime rates and would have been totally within their rights to do so if this work was kind of put upon them. And that would have been at an extremely high hourly rate, higher than any of the rates that you cited. These are not employees who are saying that on a permanent basis they should make more than a police officer or a firefighter or a MAPE member. This is about the fact that they were asked to take on the equivalent of 14 to 15 to 20, depending on the week, hours of additional work, roll it into their scope of their normal duties, and get it done, because accounting, the work of their office cannot be left undone. It is critical to everything that you do as counselors and everything else that every other department does for the city of Virginia. And so this is a limited time period. It is a and very much understood by the members of our union, me as the exclusive representative, and I think all of administration who was involved in this, including the council, that this is non-precedent setting. And we are very much hoping that it is for a limited time period. We also did discuss some of those prior agreements where it was that $5 per hour at this meeting. And one was just discussed where John Sullivan received $5 an hour for the executive director work for VEDA. And I would absolutely encourage the council to recall and think back to the amount of work that took on a weekly basis, because I don't think that it was consistent, ongoing work of that number of hours or the sheer number of duties that have been reflected to the council that these employees have taken on. And that is the case for, every other stipend that we have reviewed that has come forward that we can find in the record of our contract. And again, I think this was a very good discussion. I believe that the Personnel Committee understood where these members were coming from and the amount of work that they had to do, and we hope that this is supported by the council as a whole. But I just wanted to clarify that this isn't about comparing work on an ongoing basis or believing that one employee should be valued above another. It's just about the particular circumstances of this situation as it exists today. And I also wanted to clarify that this would not be over $16,000 for this year, as was cited, because it is only backdated to the date where that department dropped to 2 employees. And so I believe the figure is more along the lines of, it's under $14,000 is my understanding. If I include the whole month of March, which would not be the case, it is under $14,000 for this year. And that is still a savings of over $42,000 over the salary that would have been paid to this employee. Megan, did you have anything that you wanted to add? You got, okay.
Yes, I think you did really well.
Megan Hunt, our work in the finance department.
Megan Botham.
Your official title is?
I'm the accounting clerk 3 payroll.
Conquer
My
3
official
payroll.
title.
Megan Hunt. Megan?
Thanks for your time today, guys, and thank you for meeting with us previously. I really appreciate it. I guess my concern is I feel like some of the comparisons, with all due respect, are comparing apples and oranges. The county, for instance, you can't really compare their accounting to our accounting. They do vastly different jobs. There's many, many more of them. We have basically 2 people, 3 people, including Sherry, doing the accounting for the entire city. That's, that it's not the same as the county. I love our police force. That's a different contract entirely. Different education levels, different duties, different risks, certainly. I'm not diminishing that. But that, again, is comparing apples to oranges. Brianna and I have not taken on very much overtime simply because it doesn't fit with our life very well. That's not what we want to do. But we have taken on a lot more responsibility and duties. And I guess we're just asking to be compensated for that. And I'm open to any questions you guys have on it.
Counselor Paulson.
Mayor, I have I guess what would be a proposed legal question. So, are we potentially, by moving this forward or approving this, would we potentially be putting the city in a position of a grievance from the MAPE union?
Brian?
Simply by moving this adjustment forward? Well, we wouldn't be violating any terms of the MAPE agreement. I mean, grievances have been filed for a lot of things, and some
Right.
contractual, some non-contractual. And so would I say that, no, this wouldn't be a grievance? I can't say that because I've seen a lot of pretty wild things get grieved, but by simply moving this adjustment forward, an agreement between the city and some and the AFSCME union doesn't violate any terms of the MAPE agreement, so it shouldn't result in a grievance.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, so thank you. So there was a committee, a member of the Personnel Committee met, the three on the committee, Personnel Committee. You made some discussions, got recommendations from our staff, met with the AFSCME union with respect to this as well. And so now we're at the crossroads. You came to a tentative agreement to bring this to the council for additional discussion with the potential of approving or not approving this and moving this forward to the next council meeting. So the purpose of this meeting today is to look for a motion to move this to the committee, from the committee of the whole meeting to the council for final determination or not. So that's where we're at now. So there is not a motion on the floor at this point. So looking for any additional comments, questions, or concerns or clarity, or a motion moving forward. So thank you. Councilor Motley.
To our police, our fire, our EMS, our MAPE employees, if this passes, I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Motley. Councilor Freely.
Is there any MAPE member here that wishes to speak in regard to their concerns with this settlement, potential settlement? Feel free, Jenny. The Personnel Committee was tasked to negotiate this. We took on that task, came to an agreement, and presenting what we tentatively agreed to. I had no input from anybody else, anywhere, with regard to how this might be perceived by other people in the city. And so if there's ill will with regard to this potential settlement, speak now or forever hold your peace, I guess. So unless, that's up to you to provide that opportunity.
No, I think that the opportunity was available at the Personnel Committee. It would be available at the council meeting next week as well. If any employee would like to speak or send correspondence, they're welcome to do so. Always are, always have been, and always will continue to be moving forward. But we're at the crossroads here right now where, as you indicated, Councilor Freely, you were tasked with the responsibility of looking at this subject, and you came to an agreement as a committee to move this forward to the committee of the whole meeting for a discussion and a recommendation with this moving forward. So we're here at the committee of the whole meeting now, looking for a motion one way or the other to move this to the council meeting for approval. So right now, we do not have a motion on the floor, looking for a motion one way or the other.
I'll make the motion to move it forward.
Councilor Freely makes a motion to move this forward to the committee, from the committee of the whole meeting to the council meeting for final action. Is there support? Is there support? Councilor Bonzelli supports. Okay. Is there any further discussion? So I'm just going to say, I have the trust and faith in our committees moving forward. They made a recommendation. They came to an agreement of a recommendation moving forward. Yes, we do not have to abide by that agreement, but we task our personnel in our committee meetings to do this. There was an agreement moving forward. I feel obligated to at least move it forward to the city council meeting for final determination. So, Councilor Paulson, before we vote.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess, when we were tasked with this, we weren't given any other input from any other department. So that puts me at a loss from having some of the other information. And I don't know how some of the union members feel, and I don't know if it was appropriate to ask for discussion regarding that with one union discussing another union's potential settlement. But now it makes me uncomfortable. So I'm not really sure what to do with this, but, we were tasked with doing, with the negotiation, which we had great discussion. I fully believe that those employees stepped up to the plate. We've also had MAPE employees that have stepped up to the plate when needed, and it just, I don't want there to be ill will, so I'm a little confused. But it's hard to meet as a committee and make a decision on something without input from other entities. And I guess that's what I will have to say and stop there.
Well, I think that was an option moving forward. I think a committee's responsibility and a charge to vet it out. If there's any additional questions or comments at that level before moving forward to discuss it further in depth in other aspects of it, maybe that wasn't a thought that was considered during the course of that determination. But I think we have to abide by the decision of the recommendation moving forward and at least bring it to the City Council for final action. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Motley,
No.
Friedlieb,
Aye.
Paulson,
No.
Beyondich,
No.
Johnson is absent, Baranzelli. Huffy,
Yes, motion fails. Thank you. Next item, please. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. Could this go back to our committee? Could we, I would like to bring this back to the committee to have further discussion.
We certainly can, but please note that we don't have negotiations with other union members when we're dealing with a DEPA contract, specifically with the ASME union. So we will not bring in MAPE or police or fire into that conversation or into that negotiation. We just meet with ASME and negotiate with them.
Understood.
So a motion in play to move this back to the Personnel Committee for additional information?
Yes.
For additional discussion?
Yes.
Motion by Councilor Beyondich to move that back to Personnel. Is there support?
I'll support for further discussion.
By Councilor Paulson for further discussion. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. At that meeting, could we have all pertinent information from any unions, not necessarily the union people there present, but from any past practice, precedent setting, non-precedent setting, any increase to wages that have been administered through across all unions with any extra duties that anyone has performed? Thank you.
Has been moved and supported to refer this back to Personnel. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do you have something else, Councilor Paulson?
Oh, no.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 11 is review the memorandum of understanding between MAPE and the City of Virginia for the interim designated building official.
Okay, thank you. Personnel, Councilor Paulson, staff.
Thank you, Mayor. After we had a closed session for discussions on how to, I guess, put forward the contract with our designated building code official, we had a great discussion, and ultimately was determined in open session that we would enter into an MOU, and that is what is in the packet going forward.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councilor Paulson to approve, is that correct?
I will move to approve.
Moved to approve by Councilor Paulson, is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Friedlieb, is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Okay, other items of concern. Before we go into item 12 for potential litigation, I'd like to bring up one item concerning whether it's concerned or not. Pam, don't have to do this at the meeting here, but could, in order for me to get on the Park and Rec Commission to make a proposal, do I need to go through you to get on the Park and Rec Commission's agenda? Okay, thank you. Would you please put me on the agenda for the next commission meeting, whenever that's going to be, sometime in November? So thank you. Okay, before we go into closed session we're not really yet. Or it would be for both items? Okay, does anybody have any other items of concern they'd like to bring up before we move to closed session? Seeing none, looking for a motion to move to closed session. By Councilor Beyondich, is there support? By Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. We're now going to be in closed session. We'll ask everyone to please vacate the premises. Is there anybody that you would like here to stay?